This is Mad Movie Mark with the Mad Movie Mark movie review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1928 Buster Keaton classic, The Cameraman. Hey, thank you. That's very nice of you. So I am watching and reviewing all the movies that have 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'll give them all a score of 1 to 10. After I watch them and score them all, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920 silent movie era, then I got to 1940, and now I'm back to 1920s because a couple more movies got added to the list. So this is 1928, The Cameraman. It stars Buster Keaton as Buster and Marlene Day as Sally. So Buster Keaton plays a cameraman in this movie, and when we first meet him, he is doing tintypes for people. I personally don't know what that is, but it's a special camera that he has, and he says, "Can I take your tintype? It makes a great ashtray." And there's a gentleman in the beginning who is posing for this picture, and then the crowd around him starts cheering for some reason. There's a big celebration going on, and they kind of get lost in the crowd. But when kind of all the celebrating stops, there's a woman in front of Buster Keaton who is Sally, and he says, "Hey, let me take your picture." So he ends up convincing her to take her picture, and then after he does, he loses her in the fray of celebrating as well. He goes and he hunts her down so that he can give her her tintype, and she works at MGM. When he gets there, he notices that there's tons of other motion picture photographers with like fancy cameras, and he decides that he wants to do this as well so he can kind of get closer to Sally and work with her. So he says, "Hey, let me work for your company," and the boss kind of laughs at him because of the camera that he has is not the right kind of camera. So so Sally says, "If you want to get into this business, you're going to have to buy your own camera." So as he's leaving MGM to go to the firehouse, he accidentally takes his camera and he breaks a window to the MGM, the MGM door. To the door to the company, and this scene is hilarious. Not at first, because he only breaks it once and then he kind of walks away, and you're like, okay, like that's cool, whatever. But then throughout the entire movie, he continuously breaks the same window, and they leave enough time in between him breaking the window to the next breaking of the window to where you kind of forget it's going to happen, and then it happens again, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's the same window he broke before. And he does it like multiple times throughout this entire movie. So it's kind of like in The Navigator, where he kept losing his hat, it kept flying off, and he had to get a new hat. Only the difference with this is that it's actually funny. It's filmed very well, and it happens enough, and like I said, it's enough spaces in between to where you forget it's going to happen, to where when it happens again, it's hilarious. And I loved this bit throughout the movie because every time he broke this window, I just thought it was absolutely amazing. So Buster Keaton goes to the store and he sees a camera that's amazing. It's a brand new camera. But it's $2,500 and he can't afford it. So then he finds a beaten up, tattered camera that's $140, and he buys that one. When he goes to MGM, they kind of laugh at him, and they tell him that he's never going to amount to anything if he uses this broken down, tattered camera. And then they all kind of leave the room in a rush because there's a fire down at a warehouse. And Sally says, "Hey, you should go film the fire as well," because they're just looking for any good film. If you can go prove yourself and get a really good shot, then you can probably start working in MGM. So he goes outside, he runs outside, he talks with a cop, and he says, "Hey, where's the fire?" And the cop goes, "A fire? A fire where?" And he's like, "No, there's a fire." And the cop says, "Where? This building? There's a fire here?" And Buster Keaton says, "No, there's a warehouse. There's a fire at a warehouse." And the cop's like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." And this cop is going to be found throughout this movie as kind of someone who doesn't understand a lot of what's going on. But Buster Keaton will do a lot of things, and the cop is just kind of like, "What's that guy doing?" So Buster Keaton eventually sees a a fire truck going down the street, so he ends up jumping on the side of the fire truck, which amounts to a really awesome shot of Buster Keaton on the fire truck coming towards us. And it's great cinematography. I absolutely love how they shot the scene. But he ends up getting to the firehouse. He gets to the place. He gets his film, and then he goes to show it to MGM. And the film is all double exposed, and it just doesn't look correct. And they pretty much laugh at him and don't take him seriously. So he decides he's going to ask Sally out on a date. They end up going to a pool where the pool scene, the whole scene is basically set up that Buster Keaton is this small, scrawny type of guy, and there's a lot of these big athletic guys at the pool who are laughing at him, who are trying to hit on Sally, who are trying to, get in good with Sally, and Buster basically feels like he is kind of, undermatched here, but he also does fight for Sally, but his ego is hurt a little bit because he's much smaller and not as athletic as these people. So the date ends up it's a real awkward date because Buster Keaton is awkward in every movie he's in, and this is no exception. He's like the beaten down, woe is me type of date. But at the end of the date, they end up finding this gentleman who Sally is also dating. He works at MGM, and he has a car there, and she's like, hey, can you give us a ride back to his apartment and we'll drop him off? And the guy says, sure, but it's only a 2-seater. And what's really crazy is that he opens up the back of the car, and it's another seat, which I personally have never seen before. Like, I thought that was absolutely crazy. And then it starts raining, and of course, the seat that Buster's in is not covered, so he gets incredibly drenched, totally in rain, pretty much humiliated. It's like the kind of the icing on the cake of humiliation at the end of this part of the movie. So then he goes back down to MGM, and he's just sitting there waiting for Sally to get off for some reason. So when he gets to MGM and he's waiting for her, she gets a call that says that there's a Chinese celebration in Chinatown. There's this big celebration that they're having, and it might be good to go down and film it. So he says, okay, great, I'm going to go down and film it. So he takes his camera, and as he's going there, he's in such a rush that he runs into a guy with like a monkey, the monkey who plays the music on that box. And he tramples the monkey, and everyone thinks that the monkey dies. So the cop comes over. He says, you better pay that guy for his monkey, otherwise I'll have to put you in jail. So Buster pays him for the monkey, and then he realizes later that the monkey's alive, and the monkey ends up becoming like Buster's companion. So when they get to Chinatown, the celebration is going on, but immediately erupts into a fight or a gang warfare between two factions, and Buster Keaton is right in the middle of this, and he's in there and he's getting his film, and when there seems to be like a lull in the fighting, he instigates something. He'll throw like, hey, here's the guy you're trying to fight, like, here, fight him, and he'll throw a knife in there or something, and I'll be like, here, like, let's get the good shot, keep fighting, and the monkey will also help him. So there's a couple times when Buster's in serious danger, where the guys who are fighting then try to turn on to Buster and fight him, and then the monkey saves him or someone else saves him. But it's a really fantastic scene of just absolute chaos, and Buster Keaton trying to get this like perfect film through the entire chaos. And I don't know how they filmed it, but it's spectacular. Like engrossed in this scene the entire time. So then after this happens, he gets to MGM, and he's the only one who got this film because he's the only one who was told about it. And he says, oh, I got this great film for you, here it is. And he opens the camera, there's no film in the camera because apparently the monkey took the film and hid it somewhere. So now he doesn't have any footage of this. Of course, MGM laughs at him again because they think that he forgot to put the film in the camera. He thinks that too. He doesn't realize it was the monkey that actually forgot to put the film in the camera. So they all laugh at him, and they have a good chuckle. And then the next day you see kind of a beaten down Buster who is there to, he's at this beach scene or somewhere near the water where there's supposed to be this big boat show. And he's trying to film the boat show. And what do you know? But Sally and the other guy she was dating are out on a boat. And he's going really fast, like way too fast. And they end up crashing the boat, or they end up flying out of the boat because he's driving it too fast. Now, the guy she's dating saves himself and totally forgets about Sally and doesn't do anything to save Sally. So Buster jumps in the water and he heroically saves Sally. Brings her to shore, and then there's a pharmacy across the street, so it's like, I'm gonna go get her some medicine from the pharmacy. So he goes to the pharmacy. By the time he gets back, Sally has awoke, and the gentleman that she was with pretended that he saved her, so that she will be forever happy to him and in his debt because he saved her. Fast forward a little bit more. Buster has decided to give up the idea of making movies. He's only doing 10 types now. He found the footage of the Chinatown thing, and he found, which he didn't realize that the boat footage was also on there. So he gives it to MGM. He says, you can have this. I'm done. Do with it what you want, So not knowing what it is, MGM takes it, and they do a showing of it in front of Sally and her boyfriend, and they see the amazing footage of the Chinatown incident, and then Sally sees for the first time the fact that Buster saved her and it wasn't her boyfriend, and she immediately leaves her boyfriend, and the guy from MGM says, that footage is great, get me that man. And Sally goes and gets him and says, you're hired, you're going to be a big shot cameraman now. And then the whole town is ready to celebrate you, and then there's like this big celebration at the end, and that's the entire movie. So what do I think of The Cameraman? Now, this is my third movie, Buster Keaton. I've been incredibly harsh on Buster Keaton up until now. I really did not like Steamboat Bill Jr. I probably liked The Navigator a little bit more, but both movies I didn't really enjoy at all. Like I said, when I reviewed The Navigator, I felt that there were too many times where they had like this prop and they wanted to see how many jokes they could get out of the prop, and there was no real story there. And I just felt like it was really lacking. But everything that I didn't like about The Navigator and Steamboat Bill Jr., they incorporated into this movie, and this movie is absolutely phenomenally fantastic. The cinematography is great. Buster Keaton does his physical comedy, but it's not like it doesn't take you out of the movie where like here's a chair, let's see how much he can goof around and fumble over this chair. Like there's no real scenes of that. It's let's incorporate his physical comedy into the movie so that it seamlessly makes the story. And the story is fantastic. The love story is great. The way he goes from kind of this awkward cameraman who doesn't really believe in himself, how he's kind of tripping and fumbling over himself for this girl. And then eventually, he ends up doing this heroic task and kind of avenging the faults that he had earlier in the movie. It's actually great, and the ending is fantastic. I'm glad that it ended the way it was. The heroic boat scene where he is able to save her at the end is great. His comedy that he does is fantastic. I mean, there's a bus scene where there's a double-decker bus, and he goes from the top of the bus to like the wheel of the bus, and he's sitting on the wheel. And I mean, even when I was young, I couldn't have done something like that. And I don't understand how he does such physical comedy like this. It's fantastic. Everything came together for this. This, to me, is Buster Keaton's best movie that I've watched so far. And it's not even close. The female lead is really good. I don't know, she doesn't have a whole lot to do, even though she's in the entire movie. She really is reactionary to Buster Keaton. She doesn't really come to her own at all. And at the end of the movie, where he's done all this stuff for her, and he's bent over backwards, and he's tripping over herself for her, until she sees the movie at the end, she would have ended up with the guy who's the jerk. So I don't understand like her motives for things ever in this movie. She seems to really be attracted to Buster Keaton. She's giving him tips on what to do. She's really trying to help him along. But then I guess maybe at the end she kind of gives up on him because he's just messed up and fumbled too many times. Maybe she thinks that he is like a lost cause, so she stops trying. But I think at the end, how they ended the movie was spectacular. The way that they had her see what he really was and what her boyfriend really was in this one big act was fantastic. The only time this movie ever really lagged for me and where I thought, okay, that's not really needed. There's this baseball scene in the movie where he goes because he thinks that this baseball team is playing, so he goes to film it, and it's just the team is away, so it's just an empty stadium, and he decides he's going to like reenact a home run baseball scene where he pitches to himself and then he hits a home run and then he rounds the bases and slides into home. I love baseball. Baseball is the only sport that I'll watch, but I just don't understand why it's there, why it's needed. It doesn't really make the movie move along in any way, and it just kind of meanders at this point. And when I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, what is the payoff here? Like, what are we trying to get? And after the scene, there is absolutely no payoff. There's just nothing. It's just like maybe he loved baseball and this is just like a pet project that he wanted to put in the movie. I have no idea, but that's the only scene that I really didn't enjoy and didn't understand. But besides that, everything in this movie is perfect, absolutely perfect. I was blown away that I watched a Buster Keaton movie and actually enjoyed it. So, like I said, I can't say enough good things about this movie. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you. I hope you enjoy me. So I hope you join me next time when I review The Thief of Baghdad. Hope you have a good day.